Welcome to Prosperwell Financial's Social Security webinar. I am Haley Kasalker. I am the office concierge at Prosperwell, and I will be today's mediator for our webinar. Our presenters today will be Connor Jones, our associate wealth advisor here at Prosperwell Financial. He will be presenting on the topics of Social Security and benefits for you, as well as Blake Beaudry of Beaudry Hometown Insurance, and he will be discussing Medicare and all of the complicated options that Medicare has, and he will lay it down for you, make it very tangible and accessible. So without further ado, a few housekeeping items. You will be muted during this whole presentation. If you do have a question that comes up, feel free to either utilize the raise hand option in the toolbar or the Q&A. So you can type in a question and we will address those at the end of the presentation, okay?
All right, thanks, Haley. Like she said, I am Connor Jones. I'm an associate wealth advisor here. I've been here for about 6.5 years. Generally, Justin, our senior wealth advisor, also joins us, but he actually just had his second baby girl. So he is out of the office on paternity leave currently. So we'll go ahead and jump in here. So a little bit about us on the next slide, Haley, here is Prosperwell Financial. We specialize in, we do what we call holistic planning. We specialize in help with financial planning, obviously, investing, tax strategy, estate planning, risk management, and then also, protection planning. Social Security is a huge part of that as we get closer to retirement. So that's why we do these webinars. We think that's a big thing that we need to help educate on and just also help people understand what their benefits are and how they'll affect them in retirement. You can go to the next slide, Haley. So Social Security retirement benefits. When you work, you pay into Social Security taxes. You can earn a credit every quarter. So you can earn up to 4 a year. You need 40 credits to be eligible for retirement benefits. So that would be 10 working years. Your benefit is based on your 35 years of earned income. That's an average, but your last years of income can oftentimes be the most important, because those are going to be your highest earning years while working. And so you are eligible to take your benefit at 62, and you're required to take it by 70. As we will get into the next slide, full retirement age is 67 for those born after 1960. If you take your benefit immediately at 62, you'll receive about 70% of your benefit. And so deferring your benefit to your full retirement age, the benefit will go up actually roughly 6% per year. Once you reach full retirement age, your benefit will grow 8% per year beyond that until 70 when you have to take it. And so that can be where it makes sense to potentially defer, because you'll get more of it the longer that you wait, but everybody's situation is different. So if you can move to the next slide, Haley. So this is what we're talking about in terms of full retirement age. 1960 or later is 67, like we said. If you're born before that, you can see the chart above. This is when you will receive 100% of your benefit. But again, if delayed beyond 67 or your full retirement age up there, you'll gain 8% a year, which is guaranteed, and you can't find that anywhere else in the market. So not that that's for everybody, but it can be a planning tool that we utilize. If you want to move on to the next one, Haley. So retirement benefits for qualified family members, there's a couple of nuances here. If you are married and you've been married for at least a year, at age 62, you can become eligible for half of your spouse's benefit if it is higher than your own. Same if you have an ex-spouse and you were married for at least 10 years, that the same thing applies. It's important to remember, though, that generally there can be some nuances there in terms of, if you want to turn one on, you're only eligible for one. There can be some special situations where you can turn your spouses on and then maybe turn yours on later at full retirement age, but there's some pretty strict rules around that. So that's where we help kind of guide clients in terms of how to do that effectively and make sure we're not, impacting their benefit long term. We want to make sure that, sounds bad, but that we're taking the most money from the government as we can, to maximize your retirement. So you can go ahead. Oh, excuse me. And then there's a couple others You know, if you have a child that's disabled, you have children that are under 18 and unmarried, full-time students, or if somebody is severely disabled, those are pretty specific, but there are some pieces there where you can also still qualify for Social Security benefits. Want to move on to the next one. All right. So earned income. This plays a large role in this, especially before retirement age. If you're taking Social Security before full retirement age, your income is a huge factor. The retirement earning test exempt amount says that if you're working collecting Social Security, and you make over $23,400, you start to lose part of your benefit if you're starting it prior to 67. Is if you're collecting and working at the same time. Reduction is $1 for every $2 of income, and so that becomes taxable. It does come back to you after 67 on a pro rata basis. And an updated rule this year is if you wait until 67 and you are collecting Social Security and have earned income, that number gets bumped up to $62,160. So meaning that you would have to make that between your benefit and your income before it would become taxable. So in and of itself, Social Security is not taxed if that was your only income, but as a benefit, you know, if the more income you show, if you're collecting and have earned income at the same time, it can become taxable up to 85%. So moving target, different for everyone. This is what we talk about with our clients. If you can go to the next one, Haley. So what kind of earnings may affect your benefit? This is the definition of what earned income is. So for any of you that are self-employed, this does count, as well as bonuses, commissions, fees, anything that would be normal, thought of as normal income through the eyes of the IRS. And you can see on the bottom here, what does not count as earned income are pensions, retirement pay, workers' comp, unemployment. You know, if you win the price is right, it's not going to penalize your Social Security type thing. Investment income and things like that as well are not considered earned income. You can move on to the next. And so this graph, we don't want to spend too much time here, but this graph is showing what we mentioned before. If you're collecting Social Security and earning income, your Social Security benefit will not be impacted if you make under the 23,400. So you can see on the left there, the Social Security benefit is 12,000. Earned income is 10 grand. So you're getting $22,000. If you move to the right, your earned income is 30,000. Your Social Security benefit has been reduced to 5,450. So the more money you make over that threshold, the more it can offset it. Which is also why it might make sense to wait to start your Social Security benefit if you're still working. And then obviously, like we said, as you get towards 67, if you turn it on and are working, that number goes up to 62,000. So we can go to the next slide. So sources of retirement income. Our goal as financial planners in helping our clients is that Social Security is a piece of the pie. It's one of the most important pieces, and it can help determine when you retire, when you take it, and what your monthly expenses will be is a huge factor. But as you work, you'll save into different buckets. You know, you have your employer plans through work, potentially pensions, etc. But this is where we at Prosperwell help our clients traverse kind of where their money's coming from in retirement, why we're taking from certain places, and how Social Security plays into that. There's a lot of buzzwords out there recently that I'm sure a lot of you have heard, you know, like Roth conversion, non-retirement money, insurance plays. You know, we want to make sure that estate planning is in line with what you want. We have referrals that we can use and make sure that that lines up with your goals. Other examples would be backdoor IRAs, mega backdoor Roth. There's a thing called that now. Those are they're good tools, but they're for specific situations. So we want to make sure that's part of the planning process, that we evaluate what the best options are and how we do that. But Social Security plays a large role into when we do those things, why we do them, and if they, you know, are in fact the best option. We can move to the next one. All right. So a couple of questions here, four of our common ones. Will Social Security be there when you need it? The short answer is yes. We're not politicians or have a crystal ball. Currently, if nothing changes, 100% of benefits will be paid through the end of 2033. Following that, benefits will be paid at about 77 to 78%. Now we expect there to be something change there. There could be some things like extending full retirement age for younger generations to, help that shortfall currently, but we don't know exactly when that'll happen, but we expect something will change. If you're divorced, we talked about this. Yes, you can apply for your ex-spouse's benefit. Something Blake's going to talk about in just a second here. If you delay receiving Social Security benefits, should you still have to sign up for Medicare at 65? We'll touch on that. Will a retirement pension affect your Social Security benefit? If you're a government or state employee, if you're a firefighter, police officer, yes, it will. It will impact that. Otherwise, generally, no. So for the most part, no, if you're not one of those. Can be situational, something we help with benefits packages and kind of looking over those. So at this point, I am going to hand it over to Blake and let him talk a little bit about Medicare and all the
Yeah.
fun things.
Thanks, Connor. All right. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up, Connor, if you can hear me. I'm good. Okay. So, I meet with people that are getting close to Medicare and obviously Medicare age almost on a daily basis, and it's stressful, right? You're getting stuff in the mail, you're talking to friends, you're getting all kinds of information about, do this, do that, and it's just overwhelming. I mean, the number of people that they sit by and you can just see the stress of what do I got to do, right? So my goal is to just give three kind of big bullet points here. But if there's ever any specific questions, I'm always available as a resource. Connor knows that. Anytime they have someone that has a Medicare question, I'm available. So, um, if you don't have my contact information, reach out to Connor and he can get it to you and I can answer that question. But the things I want to talk about are the biggest one is people say, how do I sign up? Does it just happen? A lot of people think it happens automatically. And it can. That's why everything I'm about to talk about is kind of general because it is really specific to your situation. And I say that because the two parts of Medicare that most people have heard of is Part A and Part B. Now, for most people, Part A, there's no cost, and that just happens automatically when you turn the month that you turn 65. So let's say you were going to turn 65 July 3rd, you actually become eligible for Medicare July 1st. So if you're trying to figure out when you're technically eligible, figure out the day that of the month that you turn 65 and that the first of that month you're eligible. Now there's one caveat to that. If your birthday happens to fall on the first of the month, the government, for whatever reason, says you actually get the 30 days prior. So let's say your birthday is July 1st, you actually become Medicare eligible June 1st of that same year. So how they came up with that, I'm not sure, but that's what it is. But the things I want to let you know is for the Part A, that's going to happen automatically for most people. And the reason why I say most people is as long as you've worked 40 quarters in your life, kind of what Connor talked about, or if you were married to someone who qualifies for that, you also qualify for that. So most everybody, Part A, there's going to be no cost attached to it, and you're going to get that. Now, the part that takes, some, I guess, work on your part is Part B. That's where you're going to have to pay a premium to the government to have that. Now, if you draw Social Security before you're 65, the government's going to assume that you want your Medicare to start at 65. So these are all things to think about. Okay, if I start drawing Social Security at 62, but I'm going to keep working and I'm covered under my works employer plan, then you need to tell the government that you want to not take your Part B. And the reason why that's important is because if you don't, they're going to take it out of your Social Security check and they're going to charge you for it. And it's coverage that you might not need if you're covered on an employer plan. So the two big things to know is when are you going to draw Social Security? If it before 65, Then you got to decide if you want Medicare to start at 65 or if you're going to be covered um, on an employer plan. Not too many people are probably taking Social Security, as Connor alluded to, before 65. And if they are, they're probably not continuing to work. So it's not a huge thing, but it's something you're going to want to be aware of if you plan on taking Social Security before 65. Now, if you're not planning on taking Social Security early, let's say you're going to wait till full retirement, 67 or later, but you want to start Medicare at 65, you do have to submit and tell the government that, yes, I want to start my Part B when I'm eligible at 65. And the time to do that is about 3 months prior to the month that you turn 65. So again, let's say your birthday is July 3rd, you become eligible July 1st. Okay, so you can submit that app to the government, um, and you can go to Medicare.gov and do all that, um, or SSA.gov too. But so let's say you're eligible July 1st, then we go June, May. So in April of that year, you can submit to the government saying, I want to start my Medicare effective July 1st. And what they're going to end up doing is, since you're not drawing Social Security, you're going to get a paper bill for that Part B premium. So the other thing, just a couple other things I want to talk about is, what is the cost of Part B? It is income based to a certain degree. So for a single, it's up to currently this year, it's 106,000 a year you can make. If you're married, it's just double that, so 212. But if your income is less than that, you're going to pay that 185 a month. That's just for your Part B. So Part A is free for most people. Part B, you're going to pay that 185. And then you're probably going to want some type of supplemental plan insurance that goes with your Medicare. Because the one question people don't realize, they think, okay, I'm on Medicare, I'm set. But Medicare, for the most part, is only going to pay about 80% of your medical bills. So you can buy a plan through an insurance company to kind of cover that 20% gap between what Medicare covers and then what you're responsible for. So that's when you're going to want to meet with an agent and look at some options. And there's some very affordable options as low as $0. Doesn't cost you anything more, but it'll close that gap from that 20% that you would otherwise owe. The last thing I just want to touch on is for if you are planning on working past 65, okay? It's important to know that you talk to your employer and make sure that the group plan, if they're offering one, has what they call credible prescription coverage. All you have to do is basically ask either the HR or someone in the company. If they don't know, they can call the company. But that's important because if you're going to not take a Medicare plan when you're eligible at 65, to avoid any penalties, you need to make sure that you can provide proof from your employer that, okay, I worked from age 60 to 65 to 70, but I was on their employer plan. And they're going to give me a form that says the plan I was on is called credible coverage, which just means that the prescription portion of their plan was as good or better than what Medicare requires for prescription coverage. So it's just, if you don't, there can be penalties. So that's the only reason why it's important to know that. So if you're going to be working past 65, make sure that if you're not drawing Social Security, because if you are, you want to take away that Part B or you're going to get charged for it. And then two, if you are going to be covered on an employer plan, just make sure that their plan is credible coverage. The ones I see, a lot of them are, but that's a quick, easy answer to get figured out. So if anyone has questions about, when do I sign up if I'm not starting at 65? And, the fact is most people now that are going on Medicare, because they're working past 65, most people aren't taking Medicare at 65 anymore. I mean, that used to be the way it was, is that you turned 65 and you went on Medicare. Now I would say the average person is probably 67, 68, 69 before they go on Medicare because they're continuing to work and covered on their group plan. And they don't want to pay that 185 if they don't have to, if their employer's paying it. So those are all just things to think about is when you plan on quit working, if they're providing coverage, employer coverage, and then when you're going to draw security, Social Security, so you know when that Part B could start coming out, and if you're gonna have to pay it or not. So, but if you have questions, once you know those information, then you can start looking at those plans that kind of cover the 20% or that gap from what Medicare covers to what your responsibility could be. And I can help you with that. Agents can help you with that. But the biggest thing is just the stress of when you can sign up and how to sign up. And I know I went through that quick. If you have any questions, reach out. It's a lot easier to do one-on-one, but a lot of people don't understand that part. So that's the most important thing that I guess I can have you take away is knowing when to sign up for Part B or even if you have to. So with that, I'll give it back to Connor.
Yeah, no, thanks, Blake. That's seriously helpful. I think Social Security and Medicare, there's a lot floating around out there. What is it that we need to do? So we'll open it up for questions. If anybody has questions, Haley, I'm not sure. I don't see any questions in here, but yeah.
I don't see any currently. We can still.
Like Blake said, we kind of went through it fast. It is easier to go through it generally on a one-on-one basis, but we kind of just wanted to give the breakdown. Here's a QR code to schedule with Justin or myself here. Like Blake said, we can always get you his contact information as well. And make sure that you get connected with him if you have questions on Medicare. And yeah, we do free consultations. We'll talk to anybody and everyone about their financial situation, see if we can help, see if we're a good fit, that kind of thing. So.
And then one last piece, I just want to mention that we do host these webinars and another quarterly market update webinar just to talk about updating the current economy and how the market trends are looking on a regular basis. So we do our next upcoming webinar for Social Security is Wednesday, August 27th from 4 to 5. You would register the same way you did for this one, just on our website at prosperwell.com, or you can also call in at our main number at 763-231-9510. You can also scan that QR code too, and that will take you to our website as well. Any other questions about what Connor or Blake had talked about? Don't think so. Great. Well, with that, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at our next webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks.